Hey everyone, so earlier this month, the Powerpuff Girls live action trailer leaked onto Twitter, and I wanted to talk about it, but I was nervous because it looked like they were getting DMCA'd, so I was worried that if I did make a video on it, it would be taken down. But I have seen other people talking about it, so I think as long as I'm careful, it should be okay. I did make a video on this remake a few years ago, back when the script got leaked for the pilot. At the time, people were saying that the script that leaked was not legit, but this trailer does basically coincide with everything we saw in that script, and the fact that it was getting DMCA'd seems to imply that this was what they were planning for the show, which is honestly really embarrassing because this was a train wreck. CW has had shows that were live action remakes of cartoons before, like Riverdale for Archie Comics or The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and they're kind of these edgier, more dark versions of the source material, but there are enough people who vibe with that type of show to justify making it. But when Powerpuff Girls leaked, basically no one was vibing with it. Pretty much the entire internet ganged up on it, and rightfully so, in my opinion. And it seems like WB did get the message since they ended up pulling it, but I'm willing to bet if this hadn't gotten pulled, it probably would have been the next Velma. That's how much people hated this. And hopefully Hollywood can learn from this so this doesn't end up happening again. But let's get into the actual show itself, or what would have been. So the Powerpuff Girls was a cartoon from Cartoon Network created by Craig McCracken, and it was very successful for the network. So I think it's understandable why the CW would want to do something with that, especially since people are very nostalgic. And I do think there could be a potential with a reboot like this, but the way they went about it just felt very immature and kind of trashy, honestly, and pretty offensive to the original. So it starts out pretty close to the original, where Professor Utonium creates the girls in his lab, and also this is Mojo. Mojo Jojo in the cartoon was a monkey, but here he's a human, and he's still the professor's assistant, and he also has a son named Jojo. Hang on. Here. So this is Mojo and Jojo, and they, become villains, and they're very jealous of the Powerpuff Girls. But here, the girls are basically exploited by their dad in their childhood. Like, he merchandises them, and the cartoon is, basically used to capitalize on them, which I think is very cynical and kind of offensive to, Craig McCracken and the original team, honestly. And Buttercup later in the trailer claims that they were whitewashed in the cartoon because she and the professor are both black here. And also, they're basically saying the original was racist because it whitewashed them for money, which is not fair to say about the source material. I mean, this show wouldn't even be in production if it hadn't been for the original. Granted, it got scrapped anyway, but still. And honestly, I don't think most people mind. Anyway, Mojo rails against the girls, and as they get older, they become more, disenchanted and disenfranchised. Basically they're having their childhood stolen, fighting crime, and also being exploited, basically, with all the merchandising. And also people hate them, even though they're just kids who are being forced, basically, to do this. Anyway, so they get older. Bubbles becomes an alcoholic to deal with the stress, and it's handled in a very, at least based on this trailer, it's handled in a very immature and edgy way, because I do think there are things you can do with this kind of setup. But instead of handling these situations in a nuanced and tactful way, they're basically just having it be shock value, which is unfortunate in my opinion. Also, apparently this is supposed to be Miss Bellum. I don't really see the resemblance, honestly. I guess she has red hair. Also, if I remember correctly, only Blossom had ice breath and not the others, but here Bubbles has ice breath. But I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't even watch the source material and they just thought that this was a popular show from back in the day, so they want to capitalize on that, even though that's what they accused the original of doing, but I digress. Anyway, one day Blossom accidentally kills Mojo, which causes the three of them to pretty much crash out and give up on superheroing. So they end up leaving Townsville and going their separate ways. Buttercup becomes a firefighter, and Bubbles goes to Hollywood Boulevard, which I feel like it's a bit dated, honestly. Like, you'd probably expect her to become like a TikToker influencer or maybe a streamer or something. Hollywood, having dreams of going to Hollywood just seems like not really a Gen Z thing to do, I'm gonna be honest. But yeah, she just is on Hollywood Boulevard trying to get people to be interested in her so she can sign autographs and take pictures with them and get famous, even though she was already famous as a superhero. So I don't really get that plot line. I think it was just the people behind the show are a bit out of touch. Like, if she had gone to LA to do influencer stuff, I could have understood that, but not standing on Hollywood Boulevard to do character stuff. So years later, they get called back to Townsville, and Mojo's son, Jojo, is now in charge, basically. So I guess he's the new mayor, and they end up, so they're very distant from their father. They still have a lot against him from their childhood that they basically blame him for ruining, which again, very cynical, very mean-spirited take on the original show. I feel like if this had been its own original IP, it would have been fine, instead of it being a sequel to the Powerpuff Girls, because I think the concept of, children who were superheroes and, became burned out and realized that their childhood was kind of stolen from them because of their superheroing, it's not a bad idea, just not in this context. Like, they're constantly making jabs at the original, like Buttercup saying that their costumes are ugly and it's heteronormative. Like, honestly, the outfits that they used are very uninspired. It's basically just one for one the originals. But at the same time, they could have done something more unique, like more stylized and fun, instead of just basically what those men did when those guys who escaped from prison and then disguised themselves as the Powerpuff Girls. That's basically what these look like. Except the joke in the original was that it was supposed to look bad. Anyway, they eventually come back to town for their birthday, and it looks like they're gonna have to come out of retirement because monsters are on the loose, and also JoJo is planning stuff, and that's basically where the show would have picked up. And it also looked like there was some tension between Blossom and JoJo, like he was her love interest, which I think is a little bit weird, but I guess probably not the weirdest thing that this pilot was doing, trying to get that enemies to lovers in there, but I don't know if this was the place for that. So ultimately, this was a train wreck, and I think CW pulling it was for the best, but I also think that, they probably should have had the foresight to not do this in the first place. Hollywood wants to capitalize on nostalgia and brand recognition, but then they don't have respect for the source material, so it comes off as very slimy and corporate. But the audience spoke out against it, and it got pulled. We've seen them do stuff like this before, like with Velma, which did end up getting a full series, and a special, which was a pretty huge disaster. So I really hope that Hollywood learns from this, that if they are going to do stuff with existing IPs, they need to be respectful of the source material. Because there is cool stuff that can come from that, like introducing these IPs to a new generation, but otherwise this was just a hot mess. And I also think Hollywood needs to stop being afraid of taking risks and finding new IPs. On the bright side, we did have an announcement that there was going to be a new Powerpuff Girls series from the original creator, Craig McCracken, so that's good news, especially since Powerpuff Girls needs it after the 2016 reboot, which was also very lackluster, and sometimes had really bad ideas, like having 5-year-olds twerking, or having one of the guys working on it self-insert himself to be Blossom's love interest. That was weird. So yeah, that show was a disaster, and hopefully Craig McCracken can just get back to form with the Powerpuff Girls. This IP really needs it. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What did you think of this pilot trailer? What do you think about the CW pulling it with these DMCA claims? And what do you think about these CW shows in general? Personally, I don't vibe with them, but there obviously is an audience. I mean, Riverdale has, 8 seasons or something? But let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I am working on your regularly scheduled scripted content. But yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to our members: Tyrant Carnivore, Shiny Orc Boy, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Verdant Range, JVR, Equestron, Norman Sweet Cream, Way Beyond Coincidence, Hunter Rose, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Felix Bam, Lucas Geist, J Draws, Meowsers, Sky, Philip, Isaac Martinez, Garcia XV Legend, Tobias Weller, Bandito Bane, Mac B909, Dakari the Professor, Todd McCaffrey, Omni Fair, General Bolivar, Cavalcoj, Strider Exile, Phil C, Killer Bomb, Owen Wildish, Slawa Saporiguez, Entwined Boot 301, Griffin of Might, Frankie Camarillo, Datadyne Executive, Crimson Phantom, and Jin the Goblin. Thank you for the support. And if you want to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And that part's free. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.